long section, so
Long section.
we'll definitely have some discussion, but how about if I seek a motion to approve the entire section F in a second, and then we can have discussion.
I was actually gonna try and pull one or two aside. In particular, item 9, I was gonna actually look to table that so we can get Mr. Bova up to speed before he votes on a $1.8 million budget item for this upcoming budget.
We can,
You know what I
we
mean?
can modify the motion. Can I just get a motion, and then we can actually open up for discussion?
That's fine, so moved.
Okay. Second by Mrs. Warning. Discussion. Mr. McIntyre.
All right, I think to start off, I would like to, first, I'm not sure how you go about this, but I want to table item number 9.
That's how you do it. You
Okay.
say, make a motion.
I make a motion to table item 9
So there's
in an
no,
effort to have Mr. Bova get up to speed before we actually vote on something this big.
Is that school supplies?
No, I'm sorry, 14. My Roman
I
numeral,
was wondering why.
I'm
I
sorry.
wanted to table
I
pencils and
apologize.
Post-its.
I do.
Which item?
14, the 1.8 capital repair.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, now there's no discussion on the motion to table. So roll call.
Roll call.
Was that second by Brian?
Yes, ma'am.
Hang on. Number 14. Okay. Mr. Lapsevich.
Aye.
Mr. McIntyre.
Aye.
Mr. Ritter.
Aye.
Mrs. Warning. Mr. Bova.
Aye.
Mrs. Cerrucci.
No.
Mr. Gottman.
Aye.
Dr. Kalkstein.
Aye.
Motion carries to table.
May we have an opportunity to hear from Mr. Schott the impact of the table?
Yeah, that's essentially going to hold up all of our projects. Just want to put that out there. I mean, even our scoreboard, that's another resolution on here as well this evening. We're going to be opening bids May 7th for the wall. That's another project that's on here. I mean, the vote's been taken already, so.
No, that's
I
right.
mean, it's-
That
That would have been good to hear before.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can always untable it, so I'm going to make a friendly amendment to the table concept, and that is, if Mr. Bova wanted to, he is free to do what's called an abstain. In other words, he hasn't had time to review all this. He could abstain, and the rest of the board who has had time to review all this, we might have enough votes to cause it to be able to pass, which would allow Mr. Schott to do the work that he needs to get done, right?
That's correct. Exactly.
Now, within this, can we discuss the scoreboard?
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's a separate item, so, yes.
It is a separate item, but it's one that was on my list of things to discuss as well.
So let me finish asking Rick, does that seem reasonable for us to try to
Oh, of
untable
course,
it
of course.
and then to
Again,
offer
my
the op?
my
Exactly.
entire goal was to not have
We
Mr.
don't want
Bova
to put pressure on
vote on a
someone.
$1.8 million item that he's just now laying
If he's
eyes on.
comfortable with that, then he's free to abstain.
Correct.
That would give, it's an easy way to do it.
course.
So you had a question about,
Scoreboard.
Well, we have a motion
have to
to
untable.
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 well, I didn't make it yet.
No,
I'm
we
just
didn't make the
asking if that would be acceptable to Rick. And so Rick
Yeah.
said yes. So now I'm going to formally make a motion to untable that item.
Is there a second to untable?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion is untabled for discussion. All right.
All right, scoreboard, you want to talk about that, Jack?
Well, yeah, I don't, is there a problem with the existing scoreboard? I don't want it
Yeah.
to become a big deal. What is
I
the-
think Mr. Schott is prepared to discuss the scoreboard. Is that correct?
We can actually defer to
Mr. Brown.
Mr. Brown.
Mr. Brown and Mr. Brown.
Mike, go.
Go ahead, Bob, if you want to be out.
Scoreboard right now,
The microphone, Mr. Brown.
Go ahead, Mikey, you might as well join him up there.
Mr. Bova, right at the moment, our scoreboard has been in decay for years. We're patching it together. It is breaking down constantly. We're never sure if it's going to work that day. The parts are just old. The scoreboard now is going on, I think, 12 years.
2003 or 2002.
So it's
16 years.
15, 16 years old. The technology is old. Getting parts for it are very difficult. It's just well past its life. So we've been looking into this. If Mr. Rivesti was here, he would also attest to the anxiety that we all go through before every event, hoping it's going to get through the event in one piece, which quite often is not the case. So we've been looking at this for a couple years. We pushed it off last year. It is now really time to move forward with this. We're fearful it will not make it through the season, if it even gets up and running.
And I don't want you to have to backtrack too far, but were there other options? $300,000 just
Well,
seems like an extraordinary amount of money to keep track of a
that's
football game.
kind of the market of the scoreboards. And what we've been looking at is not just what you see out there now. The new technology is video boards with advertising spaces that in the market area, we are really right kind of towards the bottom end of it, to be honest, price-wise. Looking at all our different options, it's just an expensive item that is out there. Also, with this, the sale of advertising spaces over the next 5 to 10 years, we're looking at to have it paid for. So it's not completely a cost that the district's going to burden. It will be initially, that we have to put out there and then sell the spaces.
You base that expectation on what?
On what's going on in our area. North Allegheny is one big one. Theirs is paid for completely by sponsors. Theirs was pushing the $500,000 mark.
Franklin Regional.
Franklin Regional, West Allegheny, everyone that, these folks have been doing, and we've looked at multiple vendors as well for this. That is where this all comes from. Franklin's a big one. Theirs is paid for, I believe.
Norwin.
Norwin just put in a baseball one. So that's really, the price tag is really a little misleading because we do have to put the money out up front and then recoup it.
So have you spoken to the folks who will be the recoupers? Has that conversation begun? Or?
Yes, it has. I have confirmation
By the way, I
of,
don't think recoupers is an idea. I'm just saying.
We like it too.
one major business located very near to the high school that has an interest in becoming the sponsor.
And did we actually go out with a bid, like a formal bid, and then go through that process for the scoreboard?
The folks that we've spoke to, there's very few in the whole country, to be honest. There's two major ones. They are the ones that we have worked with very closely, the Buildings and Grounds Committee, as well as Dr. Short, myself, Mr. Mike Brown. There's really only two key players, and they're all a co-stars type operation.
So this is actually through the National Cooperative Purchasing Alliance contract, so they go out and procure the vendors on their own.
Yeah, so that's how we went. There's just not a whole lot of them out there.
All right, I think we have some of the same apprehensions, Mr. Bova. I like the idea that we, potential sponsors coming and helping to offset, hopefully, most of this $300,000. And I understand that there's a time constraint in trying to get this done for the beginning of next football season.
That's correct.
I would feel a lot more confident in voting yes to pass this if we had somebody at the table ready to put that money down for the sponsorship before we allocate $300,000 of a budget that we're already looking to try and trim and balance out here. Like I said, I just feel a lot more confident if we had somebody already ready to offer that money before we pull the trigger.
Michael, did you try to use the scoreboard recently?
Well, Mike is going up there. I'm just going to interrupt real quick. It's not a scoreboard for just football. Soccer, lacrosse, track, band, they will all be using the scoreboard. So it's affiliated for all the sports. It's just not a football field scoreboard. Where Dr. Short has suggested it be moved to is at the tennis courts. So the back of that, the scoreboard will be one major sponsor, which we're almost positive we have the sponsor, which will be the big payer payee.
So, the most recent time I interacted with the scoreboard, which was a few weeks ago, during the National Student Walkout for gun violence, we attempted to use the scoreboard as a countdown clock, and we actually had trouble getting it on. I don't actually believe we got it working the way we want. We had a workaround where we kind of were triggering every minute. We were manually pressing button to count it down, but even then there was a problem. Now, and beyond the scoreboard too, the wiring is decaying. So it's something you can hear if you're in the stands or in the press box. There's like a pulsing sound. It's actually the scoreboard signaling cables leaking out into the audio system. So it's actually interfering with other components in the press box. It
So
might
hy-
be,
So hypothetically, if the unit malfunctioned at the opening day football game, what would you be able to do to have the game?
We go back to the 1960 flip card system where we'd be counting the score and holding it up, or
yeah. We will troubleshoot the best we can. I mean, but roughly all we can do for the game is to turn everything off, turn it back on, unplug everything, plug it in. If that doesn't work, yeah, just old school hand signals.
typically the referees do manually have their own stopwatch that they carry to operate a game, but there would be nothing visual on the scoreboard.
I think what really brought this all to light was we had a playoff game here for soccer, and the scoreboard malfunctioned. And the game had to be stopped for a while till they got it working again. So this is why it has been looked into, this year now, that it needed to be done.
Is it correct that you guys had a detailed discussion about this at the budget committee meeting
We did.
recently? And for anybody who wasn't able to attend that meeting, can you just give us maybe a brief overview of how much the advertising will cost, so it would help us to understand how many sponsors are really required to pay for this?
We really didn't set an amount at that time, given that this situation with this scoreboard being an LED monitor type video board would be different. We've talked to the vendors about the number of displays that would be an opportunity for the district. A number of school districts have 4 displays, top and bottom, 2 on each side. Some have on the side of the scoreboard up to 8 or 9, including the back area, which with our current setup is non-existent, given that it's on the other side of the field. So we determined that the potential was there for a number of major sponsors that we've had some cooperations with in the past who have donated some significant amount of money to this district. And, we've reached out to them. We've had a confirmation of one major business in the area that I mentioned. I'm not ready to disclose that at this point in time, that would like to begin to have discussions with us.
And the lifetime of the scoreboard is,
Our last one was
16 years.
and your estimate of having it paid off with
It's all new
sponsors is?
technology, that I would say,
With sponsors, ideally, we would like to have that paid off in 5 years.
yeah,
Mr. Short, if I may, when we installed the new football field and the scoreboard at the time, there was a number of sponsors that
That is correct.
approached us. And at the time, the
The
school
district,
district
yes, declined.
declined any sponsorship.
At that point in time, it was the determination, as was many other school districts, that they did not want advertising on district property. That has since changed. Money is difficult to come by, and
And in fact, you can
Cover
actually
the high
have the
school, as far
sponsor
as I'm
on,
concerned.
on your turf field now.
yes, that is
You can
correct.
actually put sponsors
You're allowed
on
to
your
put
field you
logos
weren't
and
allowed
stencils
before.
and everything else. So.
Does anybody have
I have
additional questions?
2 questions. All right, first one, since I can't remember the exact layout, if we relocate this to by the tennis courts, will that cause us to have to take out the tennis courts at all?
No.
No.
Actually, if where it is located now, you have to look hard to the right to view it. With the field being in front of you, you really have to kind of go out of your way to see the scoreboard. The new location selected is more of the far left corner, and it is outside of the tennis court area, in the grass area, between the track and the tennis courts. It's actually a better location for us to service, to have trucks, to be able to utilize a backside billboard, which actually just increases our advertising value. and it allows everybody in the stands to see it.
And those of us who occasionally have to work in that press box, I don't have to lean out the window
Exactly.
to actually
And so
see the
you're familiar
scoreboard.
with
We really
the
have to lean out,
location.
you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
the location of it.
And with the new video type boards, I mean, this is a very high-tech board where Myco has the ability to pretty much do anything you want, from instant replays, other videos, even commercials if we wanted. You know, there's,
It's one of the unique features of a video board is if we have a sponsorship. If they run commercials on TV, we're able to take those commercials and really put those on our video board in between quarters or halves for soccer
and that's
matches or whatever.
just football or soccer. You know, we do a lot of band competition items here. That board would be used much more than anybody, I think, ever anticipated prior to the type of technology that's out there today. You know, we just didn't have that 15, 16 years ago. We had a scoreboard. Now we have a tool that
Yes.
the district can use.
So we're saying we feel confident that this will be paid for, it'll pay for itself in 5 years.
That's the goal.
That's the goal. I understand
I
that's the
can't
goal. but
promise you anything.
I'm
Yeah.
not looking for a
No
promise, but I'm,
promise.
you know,
You know, based on
That's a
the
mighty-
history
that's a
of
pretty
other
good goal.
School districts, you know, it appears to be very doable.
If we were attempting to replace this with old technology like we have now, first of all, does such a thing exist? Is there even such an option?
Well, you can just do a scoreboard. Yes.
See, they never used to do this
They're-
for scoreboard. It
They're,
was just a
well,
scoreboard.
because
So
now
what would
they're
that
quite a
roughly-
bit more than that, but yes, you can.
And so what would something like that cost if someone was choosing to just do a
just, yeah, your
scoreboard?
standard clock.
We
score,
have that
timeouts.
breakdown. I don't recall that exact number off the top of
You
my
have
head.
a
because-
ballpark figure even?
I don't know if you recall
I
it,
don't,
because there's a lot of numbers that made it up. I'd have to look that up. I have it, we all have it actually, and we have those numbers, but I wouldn't want to guess at what that is off the top of my head.
I think it's safe to say it'd be considerably less than $300,000.
Yes.
Right, but
Yes.
with no opportunity to generate any revenue. So
Correct.
it's kind of
Correct.
apples
Correct.
and oranges, I get it. So then, like 50,000, you think, or?
Oh, no, it's
it's-
quite a bit more than that.
Oh, is that right? So
Yeah.
even the bare bones replacement would be close to $100,000?
That's probably realistic.
Yeah, okay.
So if we paid it off in 5 years and then we had advertising for an additional 10,
Now it's
then we can actually
generating
be generating
income.
revenue.
I have one more question. So, kind of like this idea of this new LED board with the ability to have the advertisements and the commercials. In terms of using the board for the instant replays or even live shots, with the cameras that we have now, would there be any additional cost to have the replays to be put onto the board?
Yeah, so there will be some equipment needed for that. Some of that is included in the scoreboard proposal, and some of that's already planned for next year's budget, because that was the next phase of our studio upgrades. The cameras for the studios can be used for football games, soccer games, everything up there. So you're right, there will be some upgrades needed, but that's being planned in the budget.
Okay.
Does that include an upgrade on these cameras? Because I've tried to watch this, I just look like a gray blob in the corner.
Yeah, we did make some enhancements, so.
I'm worse on in HD though, so I think I actually appreciate the
We
current
did make some
technology.
adjustments, so take a look at this meeting's recording and see how it works.
Does that
Thank you.
include the sound too,
Yes,
of this room?
yes. Oh, in this room?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant with
The microphones.
The studio
Yeah,
in the high school, so everything in the high school, the studio, the cameras for the field, and the sound system in the press box.
What do we need to do with this room? Because we get complaints about the video going out and also the sound being received on TVs at home.
Yeah. We started to get some quotes, which we kind of held off on because of the cost for redoing the cable installation in this area. I'll get those numbers again and present it.
All right, thank you.
I just want to make one comment. Everybody's talking about the instant replay. That would be happening on, but we just can't put any controversial replays up there.
It would help the officials at all.
No, we can't show anything like that. No.
Darn.
Double check, Mr. Agosti checked, double checked all that.
So one last question. I assume this thing is configurable in a way that, like, there could be things about, like, student, student achievements beyond sports could be running all the time, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, someone, like this young lady who was here tonight.
If
is
we
there-
had a need, absolutely. You know, obviously, you're not gonna run anything unless you have somebody watching it. But yes, you can put pretty much anything that they develop into. It's a large TV screen.
And understand that currently, we do have a number of students that are involved in videotaping or filming the games in the past. And typically, I see an average of 10 to maybe 15 students upstairs in the press box working the cameras.
We would have ability, which we don't have now, that even with graduation coming. We try to do some things on our board now, and we struggle just to get the years on there. We can show the up-close view of every child walking to the podium, or, you know, where you can actually really see them. I mean, there's truly a lot of things that would benefit the district other than just the sporting events.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, back to section F. Is there any questions or discussion on any of the other items?
Item 15, XV, that is 15, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. I couldn't read my Roman numerals earlier, Scotty, I needed you here. Just to confirm, this is all budgeted money? This isn't, this isn't new money being spent, correct? Okay.
Basically what we're doing, we had a line item budgeted that we will not be utilizing, so we're able to utilize it to make this purchase, to keep these items from going into next year's 18-19 fiscal year budget.
Sorry, I just wanted to make that clear to everybody. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? No. Do you still request me to pull out any items for the vote, Mr. McIntyre?
I don't know, I'm a little bit hung up on the scoreboard, to be honest with you.
Okay. Why don't we seek a motion to approve items, all of the items with the exception of, okay, we'll vote on the school board first. Let's have a motion to approve item 14,
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
seconded by Mr. Williams.
Is it 18?
I'm sorry. Thank you, Valerie.
All mixed up.
No, this is a vote to approve, Brian, for the scoreboard.
Scoreboard, you're right. I'm sorry, Bonnie. It's
Okay.
item 18.
18, I gotcha.
It's contagious.
Okay.
Roll call whenever you're ready.
Mr. McIntyre,
No.
Mr. Ritter,
Aye.
Mrs. Warning,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Bova,
No?
Mrs. Cerrucci,
Aye.
Mr. Gottman,
Aye.
Dr. Kalkstein,
Aye.
Mr. Lapsevich.
Aye.
Motion carries.